Good morning, everybody. Today we are talking about quantitative research. This is the part two to the different types of research. Last time we were together, we talked about qualitative. And after you have finished watching this video, I'd like you to click on the link to the YouTube video comparing qualitative and quantitative. And I'll be referring to that a couple of times throughout this presentation just to clarify a couple of points. All right, please only watch this if you have done the reading that was posted a few weeks back on Moodle for quantitative research. This video is just to clarify the definitions of those concepts and to provide you with a few more examples. Okay, where is the next slide? Here we go, quantitative research. The goal for this is to test the likelihood of a hypothesis by using mathematical, statistical, and computational techniques. All right, we're looking at mathematical results as opposed to the qualitative results that were more descriptive. Let's talk about survey research. So how the information is being collected and how the results are being displayed. So here's an example. Are wait times in Sudbury's emergency room too long? You might see this sort of question posted online on social media where people can respond with yes or no, and then the results would be tabulated. 95% might say yes, 5% might say no, for example. Whereas if you were to do survey research in a qualitative manner, you might ask more open-ended questions and record the descriptive results that someone gives you. Let's talk about the factors involved in survey research. The type of survey and how it's conducted will influence the results that are gathered. If it is a face-to-face survey, you're going to have very different results compared to with an email or telephone survey. People will just not answer the phone if they don't recognize the number. People will not want to click on your email survey and fill it out if it's voluntary, whereas when it's face-to-face, you're more likely to get a result, for example. The response rate, influenced by the type of survey. The sample population. Are you including a broad range of age groups? Do you have men and women? Do you have different ethnicities? Do you have various demographics of people, employed, unemployed, students, etc. So what is your sample population, and does it represent the people that you're trying to research about? The sample size, do you have 10 people, 100 people, 1,000 people? You want to make sure that the sample size is large enough to adequately represent the group of people you're trying to study. And the wording of the questions. Researchers have several people review the way that their questions are worded before they conduct a study to make sure that you don't have the following types of problems. Bad survey question writing. We can look at 3 different types of problems related with writing survey questions. The first one is the double-barreled question. I feel welcomed by staff and other youth at the center. The problem with that statement is that you're looking at 2 different types of questions. Welcomed by the staff and welcomed by the other youth at the center. So if someone were to answer this question and they felt welcomed by the staff but not by the other youth at the center, they might not know how to adequately answer your question. So you should ask them as 2 separate questions because they are. The next one is a biased or leading question. If you start by including a judgment statement of your own, such as community organizing is hard, the person that you are asking this question to will feel like you are leading them towards a certain type of answer. So we're already making it a negative note. Community organizing is hard. Let's complain about that. And so you might end up with more negative answers than you would have if you had just a statement like, the leadership trainings prepare me for community organizing, and they can select their answer without feeling like they were led or biased into thinking a particular thing in the first place. And the third category is double negative. This is a horribly worded question. Does it seem possible or does it seem impossible to you that the Nazi extermination of the Jews never happened? So this is a double negative because we have impossible and never. Avoid double negatives. Do you think the Holocaust actually happened? Answers selected below. Okay, Next, we're going to review developmental designs. Developmental design, we're talking about how the study is designed to test a hypothesis in a controlled environment. So for example, if we were to look into, does playing music lower the blood pressure of patients undergoing chemotherapy? We would have to have a controlled environment to make sure that if the music were to lower the blood pressure, that it couldn't be attributed to anything else such as medication or diets or other stress factors. So how exactly can we design these studies? Let's talk about the different types. All right. Hopefully you recall the definitions of these, but I'm just going to review them quickly here. A cross-sectional design is looking at a specific group at a specific point in time. So for example, you might look at people born in the year 2002 and what their high school GPA was like when they graduated recently, right? So a specific group at a specific point in time. Whereas longitudinal is repeated observations over a period of time. So again, those same people born in 2002, let's take a look at their GPA in grade 5, and then grade 8, and then grade 10, and then grade 12, something like that, right? So repeated observations over a period of time. The next one, cohort sequential study. This is looking at several groups over a period of time. So the same idea of the people born in 2002. Then we might also take a look at people born in 2004, 2006, 2008, 2010, and check in with them over a period of time, right? Again, grade 5, grade 8, grade 10, and grade 12. So you're following trends over a longer period of time for several groups of people and seeing if the information or results change based on trends. Cohort sequential study. So it's basically like combining cross-sectional and longitudinal to make it more complex. And then the last one we have here is double-blinded. For this one, we're looking at a placebo effect, for example. So the researchers do not know who in their study group got the placebo and who, for example, got the extra dose of vitamins. So you have a group of 100 people, half of them are getting vitamins, half of them are getting a placebo. No one involved knows who is getting what, and the results are collected, and then it is determined or acknowledged who had the placebo and who had the vitamins. But the researchers conducting the study throughout the process did not know themselves until after the fact. All right, so double-blinded, everyone's blind. So does injecting isotopes directly into cancerous lesions slow their growth? This one, if you were to conduct a study on that, you would be looking at possibly longitudinal, because you have to look at slowing their growth over a span of time, checking in on that. You might also want to do that as a cohort sequential study, looking at different types of cancerous lesions in a variety of patients, etc. All right, observational studies, a study in which nature is allowed to take its course. Changes or differences in one characteristic are studied in relation to changes or differences in others without the intervention of the researcher. So let's say, for example, you are a researcher who does not work for the government. You had no involvement in a municipal smoking ban, but it was put into place by local politicians, and you're just curious to see about the effectiveness of the municipal smoking ban on reducing smoking in public parks. So you are not intervening, but you're simply observing how this ban has impacted public parks. Observational studies can be prospective or retrospective. So we're looking towards the future or looking back in hindsight, retrospective, right? So how common is fatal blood clotting in users of birth control Yaz or Yasmin? We could do this either way, really. Retrospectively, looking at how commonly this happened in the past, or prospectively, How many people going forward have fatal blood clotting? Correlational research. This examines to the extent to which differences in one characteristic are related to differences in another characteristic. So, for example, does the name you choose for your child predetermine that child's success? I know you're already thinking about particular names that you like or dislike and the success of the people who have those names. So, is there a relation between those two factors, success and name of the child? Correlation and causation is one of the logical fallacies that we talked about a few weeks back. So again, just to clarify the difference between those two, here are a couple of statements. Are they causation or are they correlation? So eating breakfast causes students to learn better in school. Smoking causes cancer. Fashion magazines cause eating disorders in teenage girls. And red hair causes blue eyes. Which of these are causation? Which of these are correlation? The red hair and blue eyes is correlation, not causation. However, these three are all causation. So the wording of the statements, again, I invite you to compare how these phrases are worded. Causation, giving breakfast to malnourished children helps them to learn better in school. Let's compare that to eating breakfast causes students to learn better in school. Slightly different meaning, right? Overemphasis on women's appearance causes some girls to obsess about their figures. Okay, how is this worded differently from the previous one? Fashion magazines cause eating disorders in teenage girls. Does it cause the eating disorder? And is it only teenage girls? And is it only from fashion magazines? This statement is a little bit clearer, right? And it involves other factors, not only fashion magazines, not only teenage girls, right? Not only eating disorders, but more obsession. And then the last one, smoking causes cancer. Smoking causes cancer. That's a more straightforward statement, and we're able to prove that through data, right? Not that if you smoke, you have cancer, not automatically, but causation. Okay, obviously the red hair does not cause blue eyes, but correlation. Maybe it's common to see people with red hair also have blue eyes. They're correlated, but one does not cause the other. Okay, if you have any questions about the material in this video or in the reading on quantitative data, send me an email, let me know, and I can post in the discussion forum or announcement board, or we can meet for a Zoom meeting. Next up, please take a look at the video link that compares qualitative and quantitative data.